Okay, so I'm waiting on a phone call to see if I can find the paperwork on this, because all I have is my word and the word that from Russ, the old man that I got this Jeep from. But other than the way it drives and obviously the sounds of the motor, you know, we can do a compression on it. It's going to come back, you know, what they should be on these. I know that for a fact because I've driven the Jeep enough. And then the other thing is that I can tell that it was a reman engine is because it's stamped here. Now, Jasper and some of the bigger guys out there, if they do the complete engine, they'll do their own sticker somewhere. And normally, that's on underneath the manifold over there. So you almost have to pull all that to see that. And it could be down there. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do know that there is a stamp here that's not a factory stamp. This is something you'll see when you buy a reman engine. And more than likely, this is probably a reman engine from a local AutoZone or Riley's, one of the two. That's where I've seen these kind of stamps before on them. And the stamp is on it, and you can make some phone calls if you wanted. There's no reason to because it runs well enough, but if you wanted to back it up, that would be no problem. And I believe what I'm seeing here is 3. I think this is a 1, could be an I, but I believe it's a 1, 0, M as in Mike, X as in X-ray, and then I believe again this is a 1, 2. So that should give you at least enough evidence to show you that motor has been, you know, coupled with the way it runs and drives, I would believe. And then seeing the other reman parts that he told me he had done at the time. Power steering, alternator, obviously those are wear and tear items anyway, but he did the master brake and all that. Basically he went through it and replaced anything that he thought looked worn out or didn't look clean or whatever on it. So inside here, this is an area that if these Jeeps spend much time in the winter of any Midwest or East Coast states, it indicates, you know, you can tell pretty easily because they rust out. They rust out on the top of these fenders. They rust out on the inside of these fenders. They love to rust out at these seams. Anything that can kind of, you know, trap moisture here. This is a beautiful Jeep. There's no indication this Jeep spent any time outside in the winter. It doesn't take long. I've seen Jeeps spend 6 months and start rusting out. So the only thing I seen, and I pulled a little bit of the carpet, it is bolted in, so it's a little hard to see. I'm going to show you that here in a second. The only thing I seen was the fact that this top, and when I got this Jeep, it didn't have a top on it. So, now we live in, you know, clean desert air up here, and I assume it didn't spend much time without a top in the Midwest, just because people typically run tops out there. But out here, it's very common, desert areas to see these topless. So this is exactly what. But anyway, there's some pine cones and shit in it like that. So that's kind of common to see. So we pulled this a little bit, but you can see the bolts go through the carpet. So to really pull this carpet, you'd have to remove everything. And if there was a reason to do that, I would absolutely do it. But honestly, there's no reason. I mean, the firewall, super clean, all the bolts. When I tell people when they're looking at auctions and stuff for Jeeps, specifically if they're coming out of any of the southern areas, Midwest, East Coast, Kansas, any of those areas, doesn't always mean it's going to have rust, but usually you can look at the engine and you can look at the corrosion on some of the bolts. The bolts love to rust. These are nice and clean up through here. This area, super common to see these rust out East Coast. There's absolutely no rust in that column whatsoever. Firewall down, all this. There's some dirt in this thing, again, because like I said, whoever put carpet in it, which wasn't us, probably cleaned it up somewhat and then, you know, left some grime and shit in it. So floorboards are super clean. I mean, the paint worn off is super common on these. It's a little wet right here. It's got a soft top on it. These do a pretty good job. I'm sure this has got a little bit of a leak in it because they never seal up completely. So, but I let this dry a little bit earlier, and that carpet's still wet. So, but there's no scaling on this. It's nice and smooth. So, you know, you could paint it if you wanted to. I probably would, just to make sure you don't get anything in the future, along with you know, making sure that this carpet here, I mean, you can see the carpet, it's in very good shape. The carpet's nice too. So this is the only thing on this whole entire body, and it's in the bizarre area, and it, like I said, probably from just being out, having water sit in it and not knowing where to drain. You see the drain plan plug is out of it right now. A lot of times when we get these, they don't have these out. And so when it rains this summer, if you let it sit, and especially if it's bare metal, they'll start. So it's got about a quarter size right here. That's the only surface rust on this entire Jeep. And the difference between surface rust, at least the way I define it, is surface rust is like a you know, bare metal oxidizes, not scaling. That's a different type of, I define that a little differently, because when you get scale, you start losing like matter of the steel. This here is scale. All right, so it's got more than just a little surface rust, and it's not all the way through. I would definitely treat it. If nothing else, you could take a little grinder if you wanted. Otherwise, I would just throw on a coat of some sort of neutralizing rust agent, like a Rust-Oleum works pretty well, or Por 15, some of those products out there. But that's it. And you can see where here, there's nothing here. There's a little ding here. That's up a little higher in here. That's not even where that is. So there's no rot all the way through. Okay, so that's that area. And then of course the underside, super clean frame. It needs to be washed. This is, you can see I kind of wiped that. Show you there's still factory paint under there. This is the seam that we were looking up underneath, and other than icicles because it's super cold, there's nice red paint there. You might pull this and you might see a little, but I doubt it, just because the frames are so, or the fenders are so clean. I think this thing is going to be, actually I know this thing is what I would consider, if I were to sell this tub, like an A- tub. And the only reason is because that one little spot. So we'd get around $3,500 for that tub if we were to part this Jeep out, because it's an Islander, and it's an automatic 4-liter, and it's exceptionally clean, because I knew the previous owner and I trusted him as far as the engine work. And even if it's only got 157,000, even if the engine wasn't replaced, we're still talking fairly low miles. So but it is nice to know that, you know, it does have some sort of reman motor in there and low miles and whatnot. So there is a ding in the oil pan down there. You could either pull and pound out. If it doesn't affect anything, and it obviously can't see it, but if you're meticulous, you might want to pull that. You can either pound it or replace it. I have those out here, so those aren't a big deal. The body is real easy. I always tell people, look at torque pockets. What we call torque pockets is where the frame actually mounts down to it, and that's it. So they're not collapsed. That's a big thing, and whatnot. Sorry, I was getting a phone call there. So anyway, the bottom of this tub, very clean. The frame, exceptionally clean. Axles clean. Suspension components, you know, flat, which is normal. They get used. You can see how flat they are. That's just kind of the factory YJ. You can lift them up a little bit, and obviously get those brought back to life. So I think that does it as far as the questions that we were kind of talking about. I'll show you this side just because we kind of pulled the carpet up to show you. But this one's just as clean, and it's same spot where that water kind of pulled up here. But again, just dirt here. Let's see, this is really in here well. So I think I can get that, maybe. All right, so good, solid floors. Okay, and then here, of course, where the carpet rubs through, nice and smooth, no rust. This area here, same thing. More of a surface rust, not scaling yet, but same corner. And I think that's it. So questions, comments, concerns, give me a holler and we can chat then.